Are you doing your band
Blame it on
thing?
me.
Yeah. Bam! This is the Hub Online Network. My name is Garrett. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to get started. We got a cracking show for you today. We have Barbara Roden in the house for the whole show. We have Jessica and Matthias running tech for us. We're going to talk COVID. We're going to talk, goodness, what aren't we going to talk about? You know what? It's a shorter list. Let's just get going. So, why don't we start off with what's happening in Ashcroft? Barbara, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you today, Gareth?
You know what? I'm not too bad.
Good.
Now, there's been a lot of things happening in Ashcroft to my recollection. So, for example, you guys have just put out, now let me find it here, you guys have just put out a brand new newsletter, although it's probably a little late for me. Maybe it's not as new as I think it is.
No, hot off the presses.
Really?
Really?
Okay. Well, let's talk about this then. So, water conservation. Let's walk the viewers through what Ashcroft considers to be water conservation. Because I can tell you what's going on in Cache Creek about water conservation.
Well, we've been trying to impress on people the need for water conservation. We are in a desert. We do have the Thompson River flowing right past. There's lots of water there. And we've been doing, I think, a good job in getting the message through. People have been doing a great job of taking that message on board. But I think COVID has put more people at home, doing more stuff around the house, maybe more chance to garden, do some cleaning, repairs, etc. So we've seen the water usage creep back up. So we're just trying to reinforce to people who maybe have forgotten that we now have watering restrictions in place. We're on stage 1 now from May 1st to September 30th, which means even-numbered houses water on even days, odd-numbered on odd days. There's certain times of day you can water depending on whether you have an underground system on timers or whether you're out there putting sprinklers around. So just trying to remind people that it is a precious resource, and every drop of water that comes out of your hose, it comes out of your tap in your sink, it goes down your toilet, it's all treated by the water treatment plant. So the more water we have to treat, the more expensive it becomes. So just trying to remind people to, you know, the garden doesn't need that much watering. You know, grass is pretty hardy, it will survive. But to make things a little bit more easy for people, we have actually just got some packs, and they're water conservation packs. There's a whole bunch of really cool things in there. There's a toilet tank bank, which is a bag that you fill up with water, especially if you've got one of those older toilets that takes a lot of water to flush. You put it in your toilet tank and it displaces some of the water so you don't use as much. It's got a flow reducer that you can put on a tap so now the water's not gushing out, it's just coming out at a lesser rate. We've got a shower head, we've got a hose attachment, we've got some brochures in there. So they're free to anyone in the village of Ashcroft. You can come down to the village office and get your pack, take it home, look at the stuff. If you have any questions, you know, please feel free to contact someone at the village office or contact me or anyone on council, and we'll, you know, talk you through how to maybe save a little bit of water.
Awesome. Well, that's... Jessica, have you gotten one of those packs yet?
I do not have one of those packs, but we've already got lots of water on conservation stuff going on in the house. We're pretty conscious of our water use.
Now, Ashcroft itself has no, other than, I guess, being conscientious about water usage, there's no factor that's making you guys go on water restrictions. It's just the thing that you have been doing to try and save water as a village.
We brought it in a few years ago. We had no water restriction system. So if we had, for example, to go to what's now stage 4, which is water for emergency purposes only, we need it for the purposes of firefighting and fire suppression. We had no actual way of telling people that this is what we're on and this is what you have to do. So we brought in a bylaw and now we have that sort of stage system. So stage 1 is you can water your lawns, your gardens, you can wash your cars, fill your pool, your hot tub. And then 2, 3, 4, it increases, or I should say decreases what you can use water for depending on the severity of the issue. So for example, the big example that everyone will know is 2017, the Elephant Hill wildfire. We lost power. The water in the reservoirs got depleted because we couldn't pump more water into them. And so we needed to go to stage 4 water restrictions so that people were not flushing their toilets, having showers, running the dishwasher, filling the hot tub. So now by having that bylaw, we have a means of letting people know this is where we're at and this is what you need to be doing.
I'll just jump over to Cache Creek. You're talking about water and water restrictions and all that stuff. We'll come back to Ashcroft. So right now, just with the flooding, Ashcroft is no longer on evacuation alert. We're no longer on a local state of emergency, and the stage 4 water restrictions have been lifted.
Yes.
We were on water restrictions for about 2 weeks, and my wife really likes having a green, lush lawn, but it has been noticeably crispy over the last little bit. But it's nice to have our water restrictions lifted. Cache Creek is not on a odd even day system like Ashcroft is. But that's what's going on with the flooding. For anybody at home that's watching that is worried about Cache Creek, the water seems to be going down. However, bank erosion is still a thing. So if you are anywhere near the banks of the river, either Cache Creek or Bonaparte, please do not go near. Stay at least 10 feet away. The amount of erosion has been significant this year. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about the Cache Creek Council meeting. But heed the warning. Now going back to Ashcroft. You guys have another new employee.
Yes.
For at least a brief period of time. And so congratulations, Margaret, for this, but explain what Margaret's going to be doing and who Margaret is and all that kind of jazz.
Well, Margaret is Margaret Morera. She comes to us from Gold Country Communities Society, and anyone who's familiar with Winding Rivers Arts and Performance Society will know her as a costume maker and designer extraordinaire. And earlier this year, she made her debut acting, which was a lot of fun to work with Margaret in Murder is Announced. So she's come to us on a contract to do economic development, and we'd actually arranged this with Northern Development Initiative Trust, which is where the funding's coming from, before the COVID pandemic hit. So the timing was really, really fortuitous because she's coming to us at a time when economic recovery is even more important than it normally is. And when we have so many local businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So part of that is going to be looking at how to assist businesses, and I can't say post-COVID because we're not post, we're in the middle of it still, but how to help local businesses in a very changed landscape for businesses, especially small ones that don't have, for example, a major chain behind them. It's small, maybe mom and pop businesses, or just a couple of employees. And these are the businesses that make our communities unique. People come to small towns because of the one-of-a-kind stores there that they can't get anywhere else. When you get tired of all the big box stores and all the chains, you come to small towns like Ashcroft, Cache Creek, Clinton for the funky little shops that you don't see anywhere else. And these are the ones that are most in danger because they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, they're operating on a shoestring anyway, and COVID came along just as they were gearing up for what should be the busiest time of the year for them, which is the time of year that they depend on visitors, depend on tourism, and they depend on that season to get them through the rest of the year. So, Margaret is coming on board at a really crucial time. We are very, very fortunate to have her. She knows a lot about economic development. She has a lot of connections in the region. She knows who to talk to. And so we're really looking forward to her working with us all at the village, working with the Economic Development Committee, which is about to have its first meeting, and start laying the groundwork for a few plans to help our businesses.
Has she started yet?
She has started.
How's it going?
It's going very well.
I'm just kidding, Margaret.
I've had the privilege of working with Margaret on several Raps productions, and she's just so much fun, such a great lady. And when I heard that she was the successful candidate for the position, I just thought this is going to be wonderful.
Awesome. So next up on your guys' newsletter is what the council has been up to. Now, this is really the only, if I had to complain about Ashcroft Council, it would be this. The way that you guys go through your agenda, you sit there and you say, okay, we're going to talk about bylaw number 837. Yay or nay or whatever you guys do, and then you pass it or don't pass it, and then you move on. What you don't do is say what number 837 is. And in your newsletter, it says council approved the third reading of bylaw number 837, OCP amended 2020. What does that mean to the citizens?
To the uninitiated. Yeah, it's part of a bigger problem with government is that I like to joke I speak two languages. I speak acronym and I speak English because we do tend to speak in shorthand. Oh, it's the same with any business. Any industry has its own sort of internal jargon, if you will. So what happened is we have a property in Ashcroft, which is owned by the Porter family of Desert Hills Ranch. It's the former rodeo ground on Government Street, just off 97C, and they were looking to have that property rezoned so that they can now then potentially develop that for housing, which is not allowed or was not allowed under the current zoning.
Right.
So they have to come to council, and council has to look at it. We have to put it to a public hearing, and then we have to decide whether we are or are not going to rezone that particular piece of property. So that's what that's about. That was asking to rezone this piece of property to allow for future development.
Okay. And I'm assuming that bylaw number 838 is something similar?
Yes, it is. It pertains to the same piece of property. They go hand in hand.
Other things that you guys have been up to is the council approved staff to research and develop an updated business license bylaw for the village. Were there any interesting tidbits that came out of?
That's ongoing right now, and that is going to take into account the fact that there's now a regional business license, because you get a lot of businesses, especially ones that are based out of Kamloops, that do business not just within the city of Kamloops, but they will come out, like contractors are a really good example, they will come out and do work in Cache Creek, in Ashcroft, in Logan Lake, in Merritt. And so up until now, what they've had to do is buy a business license in every community that they work in. So what has been developed is a regional business license, which means that it will take one of those burdens off businesses. And it's not just for businesses in Kamloops, it's for anyone. If there's a business based in Cache Creek, for example, or one based in Ashcroft that goes out to, say, Clinton, goes down to Lytton, it means that instead of having to take out individual licenses in every community, they can just get one. So now the village of Ashcroft is looking at that and just seeing how, is that going to fit in with what we want? And if so, what do we have to do on our part?
Oh, awesome. Another person that you guys have hired is Miss Amy O'Rourke.
O'Rourke, yes.
And she has, to my understanding, created your guys' Facebook page,
Yes.
your Twitter account. She's really put you guys online.
Yes, she has dragged us into 2020, which is great. Amy, again, this is courtesy of Northern Development Initiative Trust, which has a really, really good intern program. And they take people who are interested in local government or potentially looking at local government as a career, and they place them as interns in interested communities. And NDIT pays the majority of their wage for a year. And so they come into the community and they are able to get a first-hand look at local government.
Awesome.
And so they get to do a whole variety of things within local government and see if this is something they want to continue in or maybe it's not. So we were really fortunate to get Amy, who is very, very keen, loves the community, and she was able to come in and right from day one create a Facebook page for us, which is something that we'd identified as a need for the village. Something she did, something as simple as looking at the village website with the eyes of an outsider and say, okay, this is what works and this is what doesn't. Right. This is what's user-friendly and this is what's not user-friendly. This is maybe how I'd set it up to make it easier for people who don't know where to find what they're looking for. So she's working on a variety of projects for us and will be for the next, almost a year now. So really, really good to have her on board as well.
And between you and I, how's it really working with Amy?
How it's really working with Amy? Well, only because it's the Hub Online Network that's asking me, I will say it's fantastic.
Awesome.
So.
You guys recently did a radio contest.
Mm-hmm.
The village partnered with Star 98.3 and Country 107.1 to promote our beautiful village and offer listeners a chance to win a 2-day Ashcroft experience. The winners were announced Friday, July 10th, and each receive a private mosaic walking tour private museum tour, a 1 pound of beans roasted right, a VIP pool pass, a one-night stay for 2 at Sundance Ranch. The radio host interviewed a number of community members, including Barry Tripp from Legacy Park, Kathy Paulus from the museum, Marian Papayas, one of the artists behind many of the mosaics in town, and Cynthia Nichols, who runs Sundance. So, do we know who won?
I haven't heard who won yet, but it's a promotion we've taken part in. I think this is our 3rd year doing it. It's at least our 2nd, if not 3rd. And what they do is they run promos for Ashcroft down on their 2 sister radio stations down in the Fraser Valley. And it's really good for promoting awareness of Ashcroft to people who might not know about the community. So it's just telling people about some of the cool things to do in Ashcroft, what it's like in the area. And it's a way of just raising some awareness about the community for people, because one of the things we sort of struggle with is that we're not on the highway the way Cache Creek is, the way Clinton is, the way 100 Mile is. Okay. So people have to make that effort to come off. It's only a mile or so. So it's how do you entice people off Highway 1 to make that detour down into Ashcroft? So it's just a way of letting people know, hey, next time you're driving along Highway 1 and you see the sign to Ashcroft, come on in. Here are a few of the things that you'll see while you're there. And then by offering the VIP package, the winners, the hope is they'll come here, they'll have a great time in Ashcroft, they'll see some of the stuff that we have to offer, and they'll go home and they'll tell their friends, hey, we had this great time, we went to this incredible guest ranch, the scenery was beautiful, the people were so friendly. And again, it's just spreading that word of mouth and getting the awareness out there. So it's been an effective thing for us the last couple of years. It's a lot of fun to take part in. And just getting the name out there.
Awesome. Now, next week, you guys haven't had a council meeting for a couple weeks now. Because in the summertime, there's one a month. What are some of the interesting things on the agenda for Monday's meeting?
I actually haven't had a chance to look because it came in just as I was heading over here to do this live interview with the Hub Online Network. I got a notification saying that it was that the agendas were ready to be looked at. So. We do only have the one meeting in the summertime because generally it is a slower time period for us. There's not quite as much happening. A lot of things go on hiatus. All
right, hang on.
Oh.
You haven't looked at the agenda.
Nope.
What's one detrimental thing that should be on the agenda, and if it's not, you're going to throw your weight as mayor around?
I sent a 3-page report this morning saying everything I've been up to over the last month, so I hope it's going to be there.
I'm going to check for you right now.
Yes, the Hub Online Network fact checker is on the case.
All right, so we're going to come back to you here in a minute, Barbara.
All right.
But we're just going to get through some other stuff here really quick. We're going to talk about the COVID numbers currently. On Wednesday, so we have Tuesday's numbers in from Tuesday's show. On Wednesday, we had 34 new cases. Yesterday, we had 30 new cases. So that's 64 new cases since last show. We don't have today's numbers yet because we don't have the joint statement. But that is what's going on with COVID. What are your thoughts on the higher numbers that we've been seeing over the last little bit?
I wouldn't start sounding the alarms right now. Lots of talk about, are we going to have to go back into phase 2, which means shutdowns of businesses, etc. I don't think anyone wants that. My takeaway from the numbers is we can't get complacent. We are still in the middle of this. People talk about the second wave. We're not even out of the first wave yet. So people can't get complacent. And something that was really telling to me was when Dr. Henry said the other day that because of these outbreaks that we've had, there are 1,000 people around the province who are now in lockdown. They are having to quarantine for 2 weeks. So this is 1,000 people who, through no fault of their own necessarily, have been exposed to someone who has COVID-19. And so now these people are in their homes for 2 weeks. They potentially can't work. They can't go out anywhere. If they say live alone or they're quarantined with someone else, that now how do they get their groceries? How do they get their prescriptions, etc.? So it's these sorts of effects that people have to think of, that you might be putting someone into quarantine for 2 weeks who cannot afford to be in quarantine. So it's about looking beyond yourself. And this is what frustrates me about people who say, I don't need to wear a mask or I shouldn't wear a mask. you know, it's not about you. It's about the greater good. It's about the collective. It's about keeping other people healthy. That's the whole point of wearing masks when you are out somewhere and cannot physically distance. So I think that's what people need to do, is get into that mindset of, I'm doing this for the group as a whole. It's not just what's in it for me. It's what's in it for my family, for my bubble, for my community.
Right. Do you think that there's any merit to the possibility of just saying herd immunity? Don't isolate those people. Just let it go.
Again, looking at the numbers, in BC, about 1% of the population of BC, which is about, 4.5 million, have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus.
Yep.
And what is it for herd immunity to be effective? It has to be 80 to 90% of the people have to, we've got a long way to, I'm not great at math, but from 1% to 80 to 90% is a very long way. So we are a long, long way from herd immunity. And people are going to die.
Yep.
And that is what it boils down to. Are we willing to sacrifice people in order to achieve herd immunity, or do we put some curtailments on our own freedoms to keep people safe? That, I think, is the choice that we have to make as a society.
Well, talking about the Equality Project, switching gears here.
Nice segue.
I have a update from Joan Henderson in regards to the Equality Project. She says, sorry I haven't reported for the Equality Project for a while. I'm pleased to say that through a Tech/Highland Valley Copper grant, we are able to purchase 3 new kitchen commercial appliances with 1 more freezer to arrive soon. With help from the Red Cross grant, we will be purchasing a hot and cold serving table, which will aid us to serve our food even more safely, being careful to abide by COVID guidelines. Also, through this Red Cross grant, we were able to offer 2 temporary janitorial jobs explained below. She sent me the job posting, and what that is they're hiring 2 people for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for 6 hours a day. So if you're looking for, at $20 an hour, so if you're looking for 3 days of work at the Equality Project, please get a hold of, and you can go down there, you can go into the building now, drop off your resume, get to work. You deserve that job. She goes on to say that these grants have been so helpful for us to be able to continue helping people in our communities who need it most. If anyone has lost their job or finds themselves in need of physical, emotional, social, or spiritual needs, come and see us at 1260 Stage Road in Cache Creek on Monday to Wednesday between 9 and 2. So thank you, Joan, very much for sending in that update. We look forward to all of your future updates coming up. And now flipping back to COVID, we have an update from, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be an anonymous source or not. So I'm going to not say the person's name. I'm just going to read the information that was sent in. So it says, good morning, Gareth. I have been working with a research group out of Ontario who is collecting information to inform the creation of a software program/app that will assist communities, leaders, policymakers in making decisions based on pandemic realities. Today they provided information on some of their research which may be of interest to others or our show. The research project is titled Project Looking Glass. Now, really quick before I get into this, what are your thoughts on the possibility of a COVID tracking app?
A tracking app, what, to track people, or the spread of it through the community, or?
So the thought is, you get COVID, you would put into the phone, now it's anonymous, but you put into your phone that you have COVID. Everybody else that has the app then gets an alert if you walked into the grocery store. If they're within 30 feet of you, they'll get an alert on their phone as long as they have the app as well, and they know that there's someone within 30 feet that has COVID.
Ooh, wow. There's the potential for a lot of ugliness there, I would think.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in Ashcroft's grocery store, if you're the only other person in the grocery store. It's
Yeah.
gonna be easy to find out who it is.
The potential for these apps, and this is without trying to step too far into conspiracy zone. I know that my over bosses don't enjoy me talking about conspiracy stuff, but the they have put on everybody's phone in one of the last updates, they have put the potential to sync up with the app on everybody's phone already. So without you, I mean, I guess you would agree to the terms and services regardless. But.
Oh, because everyone reads the terms and services of everything they download on their computer, obviously.
You don't?
Always, always. It's if I have trouble falling asleep, it's better than prescription medication.
So anyway, so that being said, so this is as of July 22nd, so 2 days ago. So the total numbers of COVID-19 infections in Canada vary somewhat depending upon sources. According to Johns Hopkins University and Medicine, Canada has 113,790 cases with 8,913 deaths. Now remember, 113,000 cases is not people that are currently sick. This is the amount of cases that we've had so far. So a lot of people have already recovered. However, according to the Government of Canada's own numbers, we have reported 112,240 cases with 8,852 deaths. So it's about 10,000, 15,000 people in a discrepancy and about 100 people for the deaths. So between the university and the Government of Canada, there's about 15,000 people missing, depending on which way you look at it.
Yeah.
While the Johns Hopkins numbers are higher with the Government of Canada's, they only deviate slightly. More importantly, the GOC's numbers have Ontario still leading in raw numbers with 38,107 cases, and BC fourth among provinces with 3,362 cases. Newfoundland has third fewest cases with 264. I like what they're doing on the East Coast because they really just shut everything down. They didn't let people, drive to PEI or anything like that. And then when things started opening up, they only let like PEI, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick be in that bubble. They weren't accepting people from Ontario or British Columbia. So right now, the Government of Canada is reporting over 3.6 million tests that have been administered. This includes well over 1.8 million in Ontario, with about 14% of the population, just over 200,000 in BC for 4% of the population, and almost 23,000 in Newfoundland, almost 4% of the population. The case fatality rates are, in Ontario posting a 7% case fatality rate, BC at 6, and Newfoundland at 1. The national average is pegged at 7.9 by the Government of Canada. However, there are reasons for the higher than average, oh my goodness, it just popped into my head. It says CFR, but I'm trying to think of what the term is. I'm sorry. CFR death, no, never mind, moving on. Anyway, so those are the current, it goes on to talk about just more numbers, reflecting back on this. So the current numbers are that. Do you believe that there are bigger discrepancies than what is being stated, or do you feel that the Government of Canada's numbers are more legit?
It's so hard to say because something I'm reading a lot of is we know that the COVID-19 virus is disproportionately hitting older people. And so this is a demographic with a lot of underlying medical conditions. So there could be cases where where COVID-19 was a contributing factor to their death, but the cause of death is actually listed as something else, which was the main cause of death, but it was something that they already had. So we're never going to get an exact number. Never, even with our sophisticated computer tracking and reporting and statistics, etc. I mean, you look at the the flu pandemic of 1918.
1917?
Or 1917, as President Trump keeps trying to tell us. It actually happened in 1918, and someone should really tell Mr. Trump that. But I mean, we don't know. The estimates are that anywhere from 10 to 15 million to 50 million died. we don't know. And so we're able to narrow it down a lot more now because we have more sophisticated methods of tracking, but it's never going to be exact. So I think there's always going to be some discrepancy in the figures. But I think that the Government of Canada, Johns Hopkins, between them, they're both very credible sources, and I think, you know, they're pretty accurate.
One of the big things that people across the country talk about is how we are doing in BC and how things seem to be pretty steady in comparison to places like Ontario and Ottawa. Do you feel, because you follow the news, of course, and I'm sure watch this fairly closely, what do you feel Bonnie Henry is doing different in BC to handle it, opposed to those other?
I think British Columbia benefited in that we had a couple of things going in our favor. For example, spring break was later here than it was in Quebec. And so because Quebec was early and officials here could take a look and see what was happening in Quebec after spring break, with people going off to Mexico, going to California, going to Europe for that time, and coming back and the figures starting to spike there, it enabled BC to look at that and go, whoa, spring break is coming up here. We have to tell people, don't travel. Don't, you know, cancel the trip to Disneyland. It's going to be hard for the kids, but you've got to do it. So we were able to take advantage of what was happening elsewhere in the world. And, you know, Italy was a big example. That's why we cleared all the non-urgent elective surgeries out of the hospitals, because what you were seeing in Italy was hospitals that were just full to bursting, overcrowding, and physicians having to make that horrible decision of who gets a ventilator and probably lives, and who doesn't get a ventilator and might die. And so we were able to take those lessons from other places that got hit before us. So that was really fortunate. And something that I like about Dr. Henry, and I've seen this in other health officers across the country, and Dr. Tam federally, is that they were able to talk to people like adults. They were able to treat us like rational people. Here's the truth, you know, you can handle the truth. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to soft soap. We're not going to lie to you. We're going to give you the truth, and we're going to trust that you have, you know, as adults, you have the ability to handle it and act accordingly, which is why Dr. Henry has consistently, you know, taken the approach that she's not going to legislate masks, for example, not yet anyway. It might be coming, who knows. But she is going to say, this is what you should do, and she's going to trust that a lot of people are going to follow that. They're not going to need to be told to do it. They will do it because she's been upfront with them.
Right.
And she said, this is why you should wear masks, and so people will make an informed decision.
That's a very fair assessment. Okay, so why don't we discuss a little bit about what happened. Segue again, we're just going to completely change tracks now. What's been going on? So unfortunately on Monday, as I said on Tuesday's show, I made a huge mistake. And I know that one of the first times I filmed a council meeting was when it was that big council meeting where everybody was there and they're talking about the pool. And I set up the camera and I left the room and the SD card died. Like 10 minutes in, and I'm sitting out in the room saying, I'm not going to get in the way, I'm just going to let the camera do its work, right? I didn't even look. And I actually had some people, I heard that some people had said that I was on the take in Cache Creek. They didn't want that one to be out. And so I only put up 10 minutes. And I missed all the good stuff.
Okay.
The good stuff. So in this particular instance, I thought that the meeting started at 7:30. Goodness knows why. I could have swore that the calendar said 7:30. It was at 7. So I stroll in there thinking I'm early at 7:20. And I walk in there with Lisa Defoe. And I'm now setting up the camera, and then they start talking about moving on to the next item. And I'm like, what do you mean you're moving on to the next item? Now, luckily, Barbara was there. Barbara is not only the mayor of Ashcroft, she's also the proprietor of...
No, editor.
Oh, editor, sorry. So hang on, how does that work?
What? The journal is owned by Black Press.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Barbara is the editor of the journal. Thank you for clarifying that. And so luckily she can vouch for me. She saw me walk in there.
I actually sent a text saying, it was about 7:05, I think, and the meeting had started, and I texted and said, "Are you coming to the Ashcroft Council meeting?"
I need to give you my actual phone number. That was our work number, and the phone was
Okay.
the phone was here.
You gave her the burner.
Yeah, the burner phone.
The burner phone. Oh, well, that was useless, wasn't it? Okay.
But luckily, she can vouch for the look of horror and shock on my face
Shock and awe,
as
yes.
soon as I realized I was 20 minutes late. But I did not set up a camera because at that point, there really wasn't that much left.
It was 20 minutes into the meeting, so.
So, because I wasn't there, the reason I did ask Barbara in today was to fill me in on the first 20 minutes of the meeting in as you can.
Basically, they were talking about a couple of the committees, intergovernmental relations, economic development. There's been the ongoing discussion about setting up a community foundation with funding from Northern Development Initiative Trust. So there was some clarification about what organizations could be used, about how long it would be before the money invested would start generating enough interest to produce funds that could be dispersed to community organizations, because with the community foundation, the principal remains untouched. It's the income generated via interest that can be then handed out to community organizations to do their good work. So, you know, of course, we're in a world right now where interest rates are pathetically low. So, you know, it could conceivably take longer than it normally would in order to start generating those funds.
Right.
Another thing that they discussed was asset management. That's a big thing for local governments, huge thing for local governments. In Ontario, they've actually legislated local governments that you must produce an asset management plan. The same way that the BC government has legislated that local governments here in BC will produce a housing needs assessment. So that is legislation. You cannot say, no, we're not going to do it. You have to. So, you know, I can see it coming that we will be legislated to do that. Now, Ashcroft is quite a ways along in our asset management. We've got our asset management program set up. And so now we're in a position to be able to help, thanks to the wonderful work of our CFO, our Chief Financial Officer, see, I speak acronym, Yogi Bala, who's created an incredible asset management program for the village, and he created it from the ground up. Instead of going and buying off-the-shelf programs that are expensive to buy, they have licensing fees, you have to hire an IT consultant to do it. It's costing some jurisdictions hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million to do this. And so what Yogi did was say, okay, well, at the end of the asset management process, where do we want to be? What results do we want to get from this? And then he worked back, he kind of reverse engineered it, and he designed something that was completely made in Ashcroft for a fraction of the cost. And so now we're working with Cache Creek, and this was something at their previous meeting and then the one this week, to discuss collaboration between the two communities and helping Cache Creek to start down that asset management road, because it's just, infrastructure grants are going to be more and more important, because that's going to be the only way that a lot of small municipalities especially can afford to make these repairs, improvements, replacements to their infrastructure. You know, so many municipalities across the country, everything was put in place in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And it's all getting old, and it's coming to the end of its life. And it's expensive to replace water pipes, sewer mains, roads. And so in order to replace it, you first have to know what you've got. What state is it in? So that you know where to focus your attention. Okay, well, this stretch of water line needs to be replaced before we do anything else, because we know that this is the one that's going to go first. So if you're applying for infrastructure funding, what government wants to know now is, okay, well, where's this in your asset management plan?
Right.
Have you identified this as a priority? Where are you in your asset management plan? And if you can't show that you either have one or you've started down that road, they're not going to look at your grant application. So this is, I think, a great opportunity for the two communities to collaborate, so we can help Cache Creek start down that road, and Cache Creek can help Ashcroft, because they'll be bringing, like I talked about Amy, bringing that fresh set of eyes to our website.
Yep.
Cache Creek, being a different municipality, will bring that fresh set of eyes to our asset management program and be able to identify areas where things can be changed or tweaked or added.
Well, other than Yogi Heavy made it for you guys, he hasn't shared it with any other little smaller municipalities. So
Nope.
this would be a good dry run
Yeah.
to see how his program works for another group. Because he's kind of tailored
Yeah.
it to Ashcroft for the moment.
He's tailored it to Ashcroft, so it's a made in Ashcroft plan, but it's designed with the idea of small rural communities that have small populations, don't have a big tax base, don't have a lot of money, don't have the funding to hire the IT consultants, etc. Because so many of these programs are predicated on, well, you know, you've got 20,000 people, 50,000 people, 125,000 people, you can afford to spend all this money per year on asset management. Rural communities can't. You know, we're already struggling to come up with money for a variety of needed projects. So to have something like this that is specifically designed for the really small communities is, I think, going to be a huge plus for a lot of places in BC. And in fact, Union of BC Municipalities every year, they give out their Excellence in Local Government Awards, and they look for nominations. And so we as a village, I went to Yogi and said, I want to nominate this. I want to nominate your asset management plan for excellence in asset management, which is a category, because I really think this is an absolutely brilliant program that so many communities around the province would be able to benefit from. And it's wonderful to be able to be that sort of groundbreaker with Ashcroft and use this to benefit other municipalities.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So what else happened?
That's all I can think of off the top of my head. There was a little bit of discussion about getting another signing authority. Usually checks, any checks issued by a municipality are signed by one member of staff and by one member of council. So that way you've got some good internal controls. And so there were some concerns raised about some of, Councillor Coomber was, the motion was to add her as a signing authority, so that would be 3 members of council, so Mayor Talarico, Councillor Peters, and Councillor Coomber, who would be able to sign checks on behalf of council, in addition to the CFO and CAO.
Right.
And so there was some discussion around some potential possible conflicts of interest, and it was explained by CAO Martin Dalson how these conflicts would be avoided.
Right.
So that was, I think that's about where you came in.
Yeah, that is actually I came in right at the tail end of that. One of the big takeaways that I saw when I was there was the talking about the flooding and the riprap, mm-hmm. and how they can't, or at least it might not be feasible that they keep what the infrastructure that they've built mm-hmm. this year. They might have to take all that out. That was the big shocking thing to me out of that particular meeting.
That's what is so frustrating for communities in emergencies. When you have an emergency happen in your community, whether it's flooding or whether it's a fire, any other kind of disaster, you know, Emergency Management BC is great in coming in and saying, right, whatever you have to do to deal with this in the moment, when it's actually happening, we'll fund you 100%. Whether that's putting riprap down or whether that's doing fire breaks or whatever it is. And then afterwards, when you're dealing with the damage that was caused, they say, all right, we'll pay qualifying expenses up to 80%. Well, first of all, that still leaves municipalities to find 20%.
Right.
And that can be a big price tag. You know, if it's a big enough price tag, 20% might as well be 200% because the money is difficult to find. So that's one frustration, and Councillor Coomber has mentioned that one of the things that they will be lobbying for at UBCM this year is to have that increased to 100% for small communities that just can't afford that 20% even. The other thing that's so frustrating to so many people is they'll pay for immediate dealing with the damage that's being caused right now. They'll deal with the cleanup. But if you go and say, all right, the last however many years we've had flooding, and this is one of the things that's causing the flooding. We would like funding to remediate, to deal with that now, so that it doesn't happen again. They say, oh, okay, well, good luck finding a grant for that.
Well, they had asset management.
And well, that actually does. On my hobby horse here for asset management, for the 2 people out there who are really interested in local government and politics, Asset management, when in the early days when it started, people thought, well, yeah, I know what asset management is. What buildings do you have? Where are your sewer pipes? Where are your water mains? Where's your water treatment plant? Increasingly, asset management is including natural assets.
Right.
What natural assets do you have in and around your community? Because they are assets, whether it's, the beautiful hiking trails that people like to go on, or whether it's a natural feature like a creek that floods every year. So the asset management does help you with that to identify issues. And again, we circle back to, if you've got that asset management plan and you've identified in it that this is an issue, when that grant comes available and you're applying for it, you attach your asset management plan that says, wow, you've got a grant for this. It just so happens that we've identified it in our asset management plan as a critical thing for our community. So that increases your chances of success.
So that's really all the topics, the things I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else you wanted to pick up on from the Cache Street Council meeting?
No, that was about it. Just the asset management collaboration is really looking forward to that very much. Yeah.
I did an interview with Sue Peters the other day, so with a lot of information about the flooding and that kind of stuff. So if you haven't watched that one yet, please go check it out on our YouTube channel and pump our numbers up on that particular video. Now let's take a look and see what Brad Viss has been up to. So we're going to pick this one here. So Brad Viss yesterday says the Trudeau Liberals' lack of transparency and willingness to bend the rules to suit their own objectives is appalling.
Appalling with two P's, yeah.
Appalling with two P's. So that statement is attached to a letter from MP Rempel Garner's statement on Liberals' lack of transparency regarding the Hawaii National Security Review. You know much about that? There's one story that I haven't really been following. Is this
the
5G?
Huawei? No, I haven't really been following it. No, there's just so much else to be following these days news-wise. So that one's kind of one that I'm not terribly au fait with.
But that is what Brad Viss is talking about. So the Trudeau Liberals' lack of transparency and willingness to bend the knee to rules to suit their objectives is appalling. So I'm assuming that this Hawaii issue is something that Brad Viss does not agree with. So now I'd like to cover all levels of government. So I got MP Brad Viss, I got MLA Jackie Taggart, who says, and this is on her Facebook page 3 hours ago, that HealthLink BC has some fantastic resources for people of all ages. If you need support, you know how someone or know someone who does, please look into this. We're all in this together. Now this is a list of mental health areas that I've spoken about a couple of times through Jackie Taggart. She likes to post this particular list in the past. So please, if you have mental health issues that you don't have resolved, if you know somebody that has mental health issues that don't have those resolved, there's a lot of different resources that you can check out. And this is on healthlinkbc.ca, or you can just go to Jackie Taggart's Facebook page and find it. Right now, it's only a couple scrolls down on her Facebook page. So we've talked about local government, we've talked about provincial government, a little bit about federal government, but to continue with federal government, one thing that we've been following here at the Hub Online Network that I haven't been for the last day or so, and I apologize for that, but this is why Barbara's here.
Uh-oh.
We're going to talk about We Charity, if there's any new updates over the last 2 days.
Well, I gather that a couple of at least one major sponsor has pulled out. Another one, I think it's TELUS, is reconsidering. They're reviewing the situation, I think, as Fagin would say in the musical Oliver. This is huge. And if I can just tell a little story about the TNRD, you've got Finance Minister Bill Morneau, who just recently remembered, I guess, that he hadn't paid back $41,000 for a holiday from 3 years ago. And that must be a heck of a holiday for $41,000. I hope he had fun. And his daughter works for the charity. So there's so much conflict of interest here, and it's not just perceived conflict of interest. And I'll just contrast that with, I'm on the TNRD board of directors. There's 26 of us. And last year, 2 delegations came to us, and they're both organizations based in and around Kamloops who do winter fairs, agricultural fairs. And each group came and asked the TNRD for a grant of $5,000 each. So they came and made their presentation to the board, so that's fine, they leave. Then we come to decide on whether we will. So first, the chair, Ken Gillis, recused himself because he has a relative who works for one of the two, and these are volunteer organizations. He has a relative who works for one of them, or volunteers with one, so he recused himself. And then Vice Chair Bill Kershaw, who would normally have taken the chair, he recused himself because he has a relative who works for the other one. Now, this is for $5,000 each. They are not themselves directly involved. We're talking volunteer organizations that put on agricultural fairs. And they both left the room because of the perceived conflict of interest. How the finance minister, just to confine ourselves to him, did not see that there was some conflict of interest, I have no idea. It's such a glaring conflict of interest that of course he should have recused himself. And that's just one of the many things about this that is just wow.
One thing that I personally find interesting about this particular situation, I've said this a couple of times, is how it seems to, and not in politics, but just in general, seems to have united both the NDP and the Conservatives on the what has Justin Trudeau done train. Mm-hmm. So that's really like the one Jagmeet Singh the other day was saying, what has he done? Mm-hmm. Here he is, he should step down. Andrew Scheer is saying he should resign. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the Liberal Party, including the deputy PM, et cetera, mm-hmm. are like, we're standing behind Justin Trudeau. I think that this probably affects more people than what they're letting on. Mm. But
there is a circle of wagons thing going on, definitely. Normally, if it was just the finance minister, I can see that the prime minister would have told him that you have to go. But I think one of the reasons possibly the prime minister is reluctant to do that is because he's in the same boat. So if he tells the finance minister he has to go because of ABC, the same thing applies to the prime minister.
Right.
So they are just in a they don't, they probably do know what to do. They do know what should be done. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. And now, of course, you've got this, the Huawei relations with China thing going on, and now you've got the scandal, if you will, with the the Governor General of Canada's office, now with allegations that the Governor General Julie Payette is bullying staff, and it's a toxic workplace, and people have quit, and she's reduced people to tears in public, in meetings, etc. So now this, and I mean, the Governor General should be boring. You should never think about the Governor General unless it's Canada Day or the Queen is here or another member of the royal family is here. That's one place where boring is really, really good. And the Governor General's office is anything but boring right now. So it's the Prime Minister is putting out fires everywhere. It's just amazing.
Now, Jessica always knows this one. Why are we talking about this particular We Charity scandal?
We are talking about the We Charity because the Hub is hoping to be one of the organizations that you're able to volunteer with through that funding.
So that's our justification for talking about this particular story in such fervor.
Okay.
As I talk about it in every subsequent show until it's probably done.
And that's a big tragedy about this whole we scandal, is that the people who it was meant to help, who genuinely need assistance, are the ones who have just got completely, and I can't say the word, they've got completely overlooked. What's going to happen with this funding, with the jobs that were supposed to be provided, the training, the funding for young adults who are, desperately need the money for post-secondary education, etc. And they've been completely forgotten in this whole thing, which to me is the true tragedy, that the people who most need the help aren't getting it.
I'm not sure, I haven't heard one way or another if there has been any movement forward, because the funding has gone back to the government so for the government to run it, because there is a section of the government that does this already. But I haven't heard whether or not they've actually put this particular plan into motion the way that it's supposed to.
And I mean, and of course, the federal government works so slowly. I mean, here we are, it's the 24th of July now. We've got.
You believe it's already the 20th?
I know.
It feels like it's been 4 years and it feels like it's been 2 minutes.
It's scary,
Oh.
I know. It's 1 minute it was Marchuary, or whatever it was, and now suddenly we're a week away from August. But you know, by the time anything happens, it's too late.
Yep.
I mean, this is the lost summer. I mean, we talked about the lost summer of 2017 because of the wildfires, and here's another one.
Well, I'm gonna. Oh, we got a hand up. What's up, Jessica?
I have a few breaking news items for you while you were talking. So locally, Cache Creek is back on state for water restrictions due to well number 7 temporarily shutting down for a pump replacement. So you must limit your water usage until further notice to maintain sufficient water for fire rescue. So drinking, food preparation, and quick showers, that is it. There is no boil water advisory, but only use water when absolutely necessary.
You jinxed it, Gary.
I can't believe that that's changed since the beginning of the show.
I'm sorry, 20 minutes ago they posted that. I do also have COVID update for the interior.
Okay.
As of today, there are 4 new cases reported today in the interior health, a total of 86. 80 confirmed and 6 epi-linked are now linked to the current cluster of cases in Kelowna. 74 of those are interior health residents. The other 12 are from Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Health. They have also identified an additional epi-linked COVID-19 case in a healthcare worker at Kelowna General Hospital. So there are now 8 there.
Do we have the actual full day
This was not
number?
an exposure in the no, I just have this is from Interior Health.
Okay.
And then, so that's that. And then can I just talk about my 2 things?
Oh yes, of course.
Thank you. Just a reminder about the Hub fundraiser, Sipology by Steeped Tea. Barbara, have you got your tea yet? You're a tea drinker.
I haven't got my tea yet.
I don't think that we have an English. Yes, we do. An English breakfast is one of the options, and I know that that's the.
Do you have a
drink.
chai? Do you have a chai tea?
Not as this as an option.
Would
No.
you stop making
There's-
things up?
There's an amazing Earl Grey cream Earl Grey though. If you like Earl Grey, this
Okay.
is an amazing cream Earl Grey. Stop by the office and pick yours out. There's a sign on the window. Do it.
Be there or be square.
Yes. So a reminder about that. Check out our website, the Hub's website for those items. We're trying to raise as much funds as we can to keep programs and services at the Hub. This afternoon, tonight, as long as the weather holds out, there is supposed to be potentially a thunderstorm in the next couple of hours. Hopefully it happens and goes away or it doesn't happen at all. We've got the drive-in movie that starts, gates open at 9 and the show starts at 9:30, $10 per car. There is concession available. So reserve your spot, or I think there's quite a bit of space, so you could potentially just show up as well. And then one last thing for Han, don't forget about our What You Got Growing On segment. Have you got a garden growing, Barbara?
Yes, I do.
We want to see it. Send some pictures of us. So
All right.
send us your pictures of your garden, your vegetables, your one little sad house plant that you're forgetting to water, or your house plant that you love and that is all that brings you joy in the morning. HON@ashcrofthub.com with the subject line, What I Got Growing On, and make sure to include who you are and where you are from.
I have a poinsettia from Christmas. It still has red on it.
Wow.
I know. I'm amazed.
That's very cool.
It's your COVID plant.
It's my COVID plant. No, it's pre-COVID. It's from the before time.
It's the before time.
Well, there is that thought process that COVID really has started in December, and it just didn't catch up to us until March.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was very interesting.
Do I have to quarantine my plant? Is that what you're telling me?
No, if it had it, it would have had it by now.
Oh, this is true. That's why it was coughing.
When everything was sort of starting up, I remember saying to my parents, because we were down at the coast for something, and there was talks of it. You know, it was in Italy. It's hit it's just starting in New York, and you could almost see it coming from all directions to BC.
Yeah. And looking back at 1918, the not 1917 flu pandemic, I'm just going to keep running with that one. What happened was, there was a first wave in the spring of 1918, and I went back through the journal for 1918, and there was no mention of it at all. So it wasn't until the second wave, which was in the fall of 1918, by which time they reckoned that the virus had mutated, and it came back much, much more virulent than it had been in the spring, and it was the fall of 1918 which killed many millions of people. People did die in the spring, but it wasn't nearly as bad. And again, you can see it kind of spreading, that second wave. We were fairly insulated here in the interior. And one of the things that helped us, of course, was the lack of travel. It was much harder to travel places than it is today. But that's one of the things that helped spread the 1918 flu pandemic, because it was the tail end of World War I. Lots of soldiers were on the move from Europe and going back to Australia, to New Zealand, to America, to Canada. So if it hadn't been for World War I and those millions of people on the move who otherwise would not have been, it probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad as it was.
Right.
But we'll never know. But no, we were kind of insulated here in 1918 until that second wave hit in the fall, and then you can see it starting. And like with COVID-19, at first it was, oh, well, it's the flu. And you started, then you start seeing more and more people. And the first couple of deaths were, they didn't say they died of the flu. They died of, lung disease or something. But looking at it with hindsight, they had the flu. And that's what killed them.
Well, on that note.
On that happy note.
I need a name, Barbara.
You need a name.
Yep.
Okay, Esther Lang.
Esther Lang.
Esther Lang.
Wherever you are, if you're watching, we hope that you're doing well. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys Tuesday.